What if I told you that buried beneath centuries of marble and silence, locked inside the most hidden vault of the Vatican, there exists a manuscript so dangerous that 3 popes signed its seal with trembling hands? What if I told you that this book cannot be opened until the year 2100, and that Helena Blavatsky, the woman who shook the foundations of Western esotericism, knew about it? This is not fiction. This is not conspiracy. This is the intersection where history, mysticism, and forbidden knowledge collide, and tonight you're about to walk through that door. The manuscript has no title, no author, no cross upon its cover. It was delivered to the Vatican in 1923 by a French bishop who found it during excavations beneath the Cathedral of Chartres, that Gothic masterpiece built by Templars, filled with alchemical symbols and sacred geometry. The bishop's hands were cold when he handed it over. He never spoke of it again. Monks who dared to glimpse its pages before it was sealed reported something strange. The text shifts. Sometimes it appears to be written in vulgar Latin. Other times, it transforms into a language that no linguist has ever identified, an extinct tongue that predates all known civilizations. One priest, a renowned translator, suffered a complete mental collapse after translating just 5 pages. He spent the rest of his life in silence, locked away in a monastery in the Italian Alps, never uttering another word. His eyes, they said, had seen something that language could not contain. And here's where it gets even stranger. Helena Blavatsky, the controversial founder of Theosophy, allegedly referenced this very manuscript in her private correspondence decades before it was officially delivered to the Vatican. She called it the book that remembers what the angels chose to forget. How did she know? The answer to that question will take us on a journey through secret societies, ancient prophecies, and the very fabric of reality itself. If you're enjoying this, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. It really helps us continue bringing content like this. Now let's descend deeper. Let's uncover what the Vatican doesn't want you to know until 2100. And let's discover why Helena Blavatsky spent her entire life preparing humanity for this revelation. Are you ready? Before we unlock the mystery of the manuscript, you need to understand who Helena Blavatsky truly was, because her story is inseparable from the secret itself. Born in Ukraine in 1831, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was not an ordinary woman. From childhood, she claimed to see beings that others could not perceive, entities she called the Masters, ancient souls who guided humanity from hidden dimensions. The world dismissed her as eccentric, delusional, even dangerous. But those who listened closely realized she was speaking a language older than religion itself. Blavatsky traveled the world like a storm. Tibet, India, Egypt, Europe. She sought forbidden knowledge in every corner of the earth. She studied with mystics, sat with monks, and infiltrated secret lodges that guarded ancient texts. And everywhere she went, she left behind one question: what are we not being told? In 1875, she co-founded the Theosophical Society in New York, an organization dedicated to exploring the hidden laws of nature and the latent powers within humanity. Her teachings were radical. She claimed that Christianity was built upon older, suppressed truths. She spoke of Atlantis and Lemuria not as myths, but as historical realities. She warned that the Bible had been edited, manipulated, censored, and that the original texts contained knowledge too powerful for the masses. The church hated her, skeptics attacked her, but she never stopped speaking. Now here's the part most people don't know. Blavatsky maintained correspondence with several Vatican insiders, rogue priests and disillusioned cardinals who secretly sympathized with her mission. In one letter dated 1887, she wrote, "They guard a book that should never have been written, a book that contains the true name of the Creator, a name that, if spoken, would shatter the illusion we call reality." She never named the manuscript directly, but her description matches perfectly. A book without a cross, written in a language that shifts, containing knowledge that drives men to madness. Was she speaking metaphorically? Or did she possess information that even the Vatican believed was safely hidden? The manuscript was not officially delivered to the Vatican until 1923, decades after Blavatsky's death in 1891. And yet, her writings describe its content with eerie precision. She spoke of pre-Diluvian records, of the true origins of humanity, of entities called archons and watchers who manipulated human evolution. She warned that these truths were too destabilizing to release, but that one day humanity would be forced to confront them. That day, according to the Vatican's seal, is 2100. Blavatsky understood something essential. Knowledge is not neutral. Some truths once known cannot be unknown. They transform the knower. They dissolve certainties. They obliterate the foundations upon which societies are built. And so the question becomes, if Helena Blavatsky knew about this manuscript before the Vatican even possessed it, what else did she know? What other secrets did she carry to her grave? By the way, from which US city are you watching, or from which country in the world is this content reaching you? Leave it in the comments, I really want to know. The manuscript sits in darkness, waiting. The Vatican has assigned guards to it, members of the Knights of Malta, men who have taken lifelong vows of silence. They do not have social media. They do not appear in public records. They live in semi-monastic regimes, watching over a book that must not be opened. But the seal is not just a lock, it's a countdown, and the clock is ticking. Let's talk about what's actually written in that book, or at least what we've been able to piece together from those who glimpsed it before the seal was placed. The manuscript is made of something unusual. Not paper, not parchment, but a kind of vegetable leather that does not decay. It's bound with no metal, no glue, as if it were grown, not assembled. The pages themselves feel warm to the touch, even in the coldest vaults. And the text? It moves, not metaphorically, literally. Monks who examined it reported that the characters would rearrange themselves depending on who was reading. One scholar saw Latin, another saw symbols resembling Enochian script. A third swore it was written in a Proto-Sumerian dialect that predated cuneiform by millennia. But the most disturbing aspect is not the language, it's the illustrations. There are images in the manuscript that cause physical reactions in those who view them. Vertigo, nausea, disorientation. One cardinal described it as seeing dimensions folded inside themselves, like watching the universe turn inside out. The illustrations depict beings, humanoid but wrong, figures with too many limbs, eyes that stare from impossible angles, geometries that should not exist in three-dimensional space. Some resemble the descriptions of the Watchers from the Book of Enoch, those fallen angels who descended to earth and taught humanity forbidden arts. But here's the twist. The manuscript does not portray them as villains. It portrays them as creators. According to fragmented translations recovered before the seal was placed, the manuscript describes humanity not as God's perfect creation, but as a genetic experiment, an artificial species designed by these entities for purposes we do not fully understand. It speaks of the archons, rulers of lower dimensions who feed on human emotion and belief. It claims that religion itself was engineered as a control mechanism, a way to keep humanity spiritually imprisoned, while these entities harvest energy from our suffering and worship. Blavatsky wrote about this exact concept decades earlier. In her magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, she described the archons as beings who manipulate human perception, creating the illusion of separation between spirit and matter. She called them the lords of the material plane, and warned that they masquerade as gods, angels, and saints. Was she channeling the manuscript's contents through mystical means, or had she seen an earlier copy, perhaps hidden within Tibetan monasteries or Egyptian temples? The manuscript also contains something else: names. Names of world leaders who would betray humanity. Names of those who served the archons knowingly, guiding civilization towards spiritual enslavement. Some claim these names belong to figures living today: politicians, religious leaders, corporate moguls. But here's the chilling part. The manuscript also mentions the anti-pope, not a future anti-pope, a present one. According to esoteric scholars, the text predicts that a false pope, someone who appears holy but serves darker forces, will lead the church into its final collapse. This figure will pave the way for the Antichrist, who will unite humanity under a single deceptive banner. Pope John XXIII, Pope John Paul I, and Pope Benedict XVI all signed renewals of the manuscript seal, forbidding any attempt to access it before 2100. Each of them reportedly read portions of it, and each of them, after doing so, became visibly changed, more somber, more cautious, more aware of something terrible waiting ahead. If this is making sense to you, comment below with your opinion and share this video. But the biggest mystery remains. Why 2100? What happens in 2100 that makes it safe or necessary to unseal this knowledge? Now let's connect the dots between the manuscript, the Templars, and Helena Blavatsky's hidden knowledge. The Cathedral of Chartres, where the manuscript was discovered, is no ordinary church. It was built by the Knights Templar in the 12th century, and every stone, every window, every measurement contains encoded wisdom. The Templars were not just warrior monks. They were guardians of ancient knowledge recovered from beneath Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. What did they find there? Texts, artifacts, secrets that predated Christianity itself. Some historians believe the Templars discovered documents proving that Jesus was not the Son of God, in the way the Church claimed, but rather a mystic initiate who taught an older, suppressed spiritual system. Others say they found records of pre-flood civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, and learned that human history is far older and stranger than we've been told. The manuscript found beneath Chartres may have been one of these Templar treasures, hidden for centuries, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Blavatsky knew the Templars' story intimately. In her writings, she praised them as preservers of the ancient mysteries and suggested that their destruction by the Church in 1307 was not about heresy, it was about silencing truth. The Templars possessed knowledge that threatened the foundations of religious authority, and so they were burned, disbanded, erased. But their secrets did not die with them. Secret societies, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, the Theosophical Society, inherited fragments of Templar wisdom. These groups became the modern custodians of forbidden knowledge, passing it down through coded symbols, rituals, and hidden texts. Blavatsky herself claimed to have been initiated into several of these orders. She spoke of the Mahatmas, enlightened beings living in Tibet, who preserved the true teachings of humanity's spiritual origins. She said these masters possessed libraries containing books that predated recorded history, including texts describing the rise and fall of Atlantis, the genetic manipulation of early humans, and the true nature of the entities humans call gods. Could the Vatican Manuscript be one of these ancient texts, recovered, translated, and then suppressed because its contents were too destabilizing? Think about it. If the manuscript proves that Christianity is built on older, manipulated traditions, if it reveals that humanity's origins are artificial rather than divine, if it names the hidden forces controlling world governments and religions, then its release would trigger a total collapse of the systems that currently maintain order. That's why the Vatican locked it away. Not to protect the manuscript, but to protect themselves. Not to hide lies, but to hide truths. Blavatsky understood this. She knew that spiritual liberation requires destroying false beliefs, even if those beliefs provide comfort. She spent her life preparing people to handle the truth, teaching them that divinity exists within, not above, that we are not sinful creations in need of redemption, but powerful beings who have forgotten our origins. And perhaps, just perhaps, the manuscript contains the final piece of that puzzle, the ultimate proof that we are not what we've been told. Every great story has a moment where everything shifts, where the hero realizes the world is not what it seemed. This is that moment. Let's talk about the duality at the heart of this mystery. The Vatican represents light, doesn't it? The Holy Seat, the Vicar of Christ, the guardian of souls. But what if that light has been casting shadows intentionally? Blavatsky taught that spiritual systems often invert truth. What is called holy might be a prison. What is called heresy might be liberation. She warned that organized religion, especially in its most powerful forms, functions as a control mechanism designed to keep humanity in spiritual infancy. The manuscript, according to those who've studied its fragments, supports this view. It describes how religious institutions were created by the archons, those dimensional rulers, who feed on human fear, worship, and suffering. These entities do not want humanity to awaken to its true power, so they built belief systems that place divinity outside of us, making us dependent on external authorities. Think about it. If you believe you are a sinner in need of salvation, you give away your power. If you believe God is distant and judgmental, you live in fear. If you believe only priests can mediate between you and the divine, You surrender autonomy. This is not spiritual enlightenment, this is spiritual enslavement. And the manuscript allegedly contains proof, historical records, genetic data, cosmological diagrams, showing how this system was engineered over thousands of years. But here's the paradox. The Vatican knows this. The popes who signed the seal know this, and yet they continue to uphold the institution. Why? Because releasing the truth would not just destroy the church, it would destabilize all of human civilization. Governments, economies, social structures, they all rest on shared beliefs, on collective agreements about reality. If those agreements shatter, chaos follows. Blavatsky faced this dilemma herself. She possessed knowledge that could upend society, but she released it gradually, encoded in dense, difficult texts that only serious seekers could penetrate. She knew that truth given too quickly can destroy rather than enlighten. The Vatican is doing the same thing, but with one critical difference. They're not preparing humanity for revelation. They're delaying it indefinitely. The year 2100 is not a release date. It's a hope that by then, either humanity will have forgotten, or the world will have changed so drastically that the manuscript's contents no longer matter. But what if we refuse to forget? What if we start asking the questions now? If this content is opening your mind, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next chapters of this journey. Blavatsky believed that awakening is inevitable, that no matter how tightly truth is locked away, it seeps through in dreams, in visions, in synchronicities. She taught that the universe itself conspires to wake us up, even when institutions conspire to keep us asleep. The manuscript is part of that awakening, and whether the Vatican opens it in 2100 or not, the truth it contains is already emerging. Here's something most people don't realize. The manuscript isn't the only source of this knowledge. It's just the most explicit, the most undeniable. The same truths it contains have been scattered throughout history, hidden in myths, encoded in sacred texts, whispered by mystics. Blavatsky spent her entire life collecting these fragments and weaving them into a coherent picture. She studied the Vedas, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Gnostic Gospels, the Kabbalah. She cross-referenced mythologies from dozens of cultures and found the same recurring themes. Humanity was created or modified by non-human intelligences. There was a golden age, a time before recorded history when humans possessed extraordinary abilities. How a cataclysm occurred, a flood, a war, a cosmic event that reset civilization and erased our memories. Survivors preserved fragments of ancient knowledge in secret schools and hidden texts. These survivors became the mystery schools, the priesthoods, the secret societies, groups that passed down esoteric wisdom through the ages, waiting for humanity to be ready to receive it again. The manuscript is one of these preserved texts. But unlike the others, which are encoded or allegorical, it is direct, explicit, undeniable. That's what makes it so dangerous. Imagine if tomorrow the Vatican released the manuscript and it contained undeniable proof, genetic records, astronomical data, historical accounts, that humans were genetically engineered by advanced beings, that religions are control systems, that the gods of ancient texts were not divine, but technological. What would happen? Faith would collapse. Governments would lose legitimacy. Social structures would fracture. People would realize they've been living inside a carefully constructed illusion, and that realization would trigger mass awakening or mass chaos. Blavatsky saw this coming. She wrote, "The day will come when humanity must choose between the comfort of lies and the terror of truth. Those who choose truth will be few, but they will inherit the future." The Vatican knows this too. That's why the manuscript is not just locked. It's guarded by the Knights of Malta, an ancient order with ties to the Templars, the Crusades, and the deepest layers of church power. These knights take lifelong vows of silence. They live outside the modern world, disconnected from technology, invisible to public records. Their sole purpose is to protect the manuscript from being stolen, leaked, or prematurely opened. But here's the twist. Some esoteric researchers believe there are multiple copies, that the Vatican manuscript is just one version, the official one, that other copies exist in hidden libraries, beneath Tibetan monasteries, in Egyptian crypts, within Masonic vaults. And perhaps Blavatsky had access to one of these copies. Perhaps that's how she knew. like this video right now, it really helps spread this message. But even if the manuscript remains sealed until 2100, its contents are already awakening within the collective consciousness. Humanity is beginning to remember, not through books, but through direct knowing. The veil is thinning, the lies are crumbling, and soon, very soon, we won't need the Vatican's permission to know the truth. Let's bring this back to your life. Right now, today, you might be thinking, okay, interesting story about a hidden manuscript and a mystic from the 1800s. But what does this have to do with me? Everything. Because the same forces that locked away that manuscript are the same forces shaping your reality right now. Think about it. You live in a world where information is controlled, where narratives are carefully curated, where asking certain questions gets you labeled as crazy, dangerous, or heretical. You're told to trust authority, to accept the official story, to not dig too deep. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? The manuscript is just a symbol, a physical representation of suppressed truth. But the real manuscript is written in the fabric of your daily life. It's in the news you're not allowed to question, the history you weren't taught in school, the scientific discoveries that never make it to mainstream awareness. Blavatsky understood this. She didn't just talk about ancient secrets. She warned that the same suppression continues in every generation, that those in power will always protect their power by controlling what people believe. But here's the empowering part. You don't need to wait until 2100. You don't need the Vatican's permission. You don't need a secret manuscript. You have something more powerful, your own consciousness. Blavatsky taught that awakening is not about acquiring hidden knowledge. It's about remembering what you already know deep inside. It's about reclaiming your spiritual sovereignty, questioning everything, and refusing to outsource your truth to external authorities. The manuscript exists to prove something you already sense, that reality is far stranger, far more magical, far more mysterious than the official story allows, that you are not a powerless sinner. You are a powerful being with latent abilities that have been systematically suppressed. That the forces controlling this world fear your awakening more than anything else. So while the Vatican counts down to 2100, you can start your own countdown to the moment when you break free from every lie you've ever been told about who you are and what you're capable of. That's the real revelation. That's what the manuscript ultimately points to. Not information on pages, but transformation within you. Now comes the moment of decision. The Vatican believes humanity isn't ready for the truth, that we need another 75 years before we can handle what's written in that manuscript. But here's my question for you. Do you agree with them? Do you think people need to be protected from knowledge, that some truths are too dangerous to know? That authority figures should decide what you're allowed to understand about reality? Or do you believe that truth, no matter how disturbing, is always better than comfortable lies? Blavatsky faced this exact dilemma. She possessed knowledge that could shatter worldviews, but she chose to release it, even though she was ridiculed, attacked, and dismissed as a fraud. She believed that humanity deserved to know, even if knowing was painful. The Vatican made the opposite choice. They decided to lock the truth away, to control the timeline of revelation, to play God with humanity's spiritual development. Which approach do you think is right? And more importantly, which approach will you take in your own life? Because this isn't just about a manuscript in a vault. It's about every moment when you have to choose between seeking uncomfortable truth or accepting convenient fiction. It's about whether you'll question authority or blindly obey. It's about whether you'll explore forbidden knowledge or stay safely within approved boundaries. It's about whether you'll awaken or remain asleep. Helena Blavatsky chose awakening. She chose to challenge every institution, every dogma, every authority that claimed to have a monopoly on truth. And because of that choice, she became one of the most influential spiritual figures in modern history. The manuscript will be opened in 2100, or maybe it won't. Maybe the Vatican will find another excuse to delay, another reason to keep it sealed. But you don't have to wait. You can open your own inner manuscript, the one written in your intuition, your questions, your refusal to accept reality as presented. Comment your perspective below. I really want to read what you think. So I'll ask again, if you could wait until 2100 for the truth, would you? Or would you start seeking it right now? The choice, as always, is yours, but choose wisely, because your choice shapes not just your life, but the future of humanity itself. We're approaching the climax of this story, the moment where all paths converge, where all secrets point toward a single, unavoidable truth. Helena Blavatsky knew this moment was coming. She called it the end of the Kali Yuga, the end of the age of darkness, when humanity would be forced to confront the lies it has lived by. The manuscript is just one symptom of this larger transition. It sits in the Vatican vault, not just as a historical artifact, but as a trigger, a cosmic time bomb set to detonate in 2100. But here's the twist that nobody talks about. The year 2100 might not be arbitrary. Some esoteric scholars believe it corresponds to a specific astronomical alignment, a moment when the veil between dimensions becomes thin, when spiritual energies flood the earth, when humanity will be forced into collective awakening, whether we're ready or not. Others believe it marks the culmination of a prophecy written in the manuscript itself, a countdown not to revelation, but to initiation, that the manuscript will not simply be opened and read, but activated, like a key turning in a cosmic lock. And when that happens, reality itself will shift. Those who have prepared, who have done the inner work, who have questioned authority, who have reclaimed their spiritual sovereignty, will navigate the shift with grace. Those who remain asleep, dependent on external systems and authorities, will experience it as chaos. Blavatsky spent her life preparing people for this. She created the Theosophical Society not to spread dogma, but to teach self-inquiry, critical thinking, and direct spiritual experience. She knew that the only way to survive the coming revelation would be to become internally strong, to build your foundation on truth rather than belief. The manuscript contains information that will shatter belief systems, but those who have already shattered their own illusions will not be destroyed by it. They'll be liberated. The Vatican understands this too. That's why they're so careful with the timing. They're not just protecting knowledge, they're managing a collective initiation process. But the universe doesn't need their permission. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. The awakening is happening now. The manuscript is just one symbol among many, and whether it opens in 2100 or tomorrow, the truth is already here, waiting inside you. Will you open it? Or will you wait for the Vatican to give you permission? And so we arrive at the end, or perhaps the beginning. The manuscript will remain sealed until 2100. 3 popes signed that seal. The Knights of Malta guard it. The world goes on, forgetting, distracted, comfortable in its illusions. But you've made it here. You've followed this journey to its conclusion, and that means something. Helena Blavatsky once wrote, "There is no religion higher than truth." The manuscript represents the ultimate test of that principle. Are we ready to value truth over comfort, knowledge over control, awakening over safety? The Vatican says no, not yet, not until 2100, but you get to decide for yourself, right now. You can choose to live as if the truth matters, as if your spiritual sovereignty is non-negotiable, as if no institution, no matter how ancient or powerful, has the right to determine what you're allowed to know. Blavatsky made that choice. She paid the price, ridicule, persecution, exile, but she also gained something priceless: freedom. The manuscript will be opened one day, or it won't. That's beyond your control. But your own inner manuscript, the one written in your consciousness, your intuition, your direct experience of reality, that one you can open right now. And when you do, you'll discover that you never needed the Vatican's permission. You never needed external authority to validate your truth. You never needed to wait until 2100. If you followed this journey to the end, subscribe to the channel, leave your like and share in the comments what stood out most to you. The seal is breaking, not in some distant future, but here, now, within you. Welcome to your awakening. The journey has just begun.